It's April 7th, 2025, and you know what that means.
Another deep dive.
That's right, another deep dive. And this time we're looking at something I'm sure you're all keeping an eye on these days, the U.S. stock market.
Of course.
Specifically, its reaction to this ongoing global trade war that just doesn't seem to want to go away.
Yeah.
But we're not just going to scratch the surface here. We're
Yeah.
going deeper.
Always deeper.
Exactly. We want to see if we can spot some future opportunities. And one area that's got a lot of people talking
Oh, yeah.
is green energy. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to be using a framework outlined in Superforecasting by Philip Tetlock and Dan Gardner.
Now, this is a book with some serious street cred. I mean, Sam Altman himself recommended it.
Exactly.
So we're in good company.
Yeah, we're in good company. And hopefully by applying these principles of Superforecasting, we can make some sense of this whole complex situation.
Absolutely. Now, at its core, Superforecasting is all about, making better predictions.
Yeah.
And Tetlock's work, especially this Good Judgment project, it really highlighted the fact that if we focus on data, if we acknowledge what we don't know, and we're constantly updating our views, we can actually become surprisingly accurate in our predictions.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap of just looking for information that confirms what we already believe.
Oh, confirmation bias is a real danger.
It is. But the super forecasters, they're really trying to avoid that.
Absolutely.
So let's apply that to what's happening right now with this trade war. So right now we're seeing immediate effects. I mean, let's just say hypothetically, tech stocks have taken a 5% hit this week.
Okay.
And, companies that are really heavily involved with China like Tesla and Apple, they're seeing some significant ups and downs, due to these tariffs. Feels like a very shaky time to be in tech.
It does. But here's the interesting thing. While all of that's happening, this volatility in tech, there's this other area that's starting to emerge as a potential area of growth and stability.
Okay.
Green hydrogen.
Green hydrogen.
And the cost of producing it has really come down significantly.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about a range now of 5 to 7 per kilogram.
Wow.
To put that into perspective, that makes it increasingly competitive with traditional fuels for certain uses.
That's huge. And I've noticed that there's just been so much more economic activity around this whole green hydrogen sector.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there's just so many more projects popping up.
Yeah.
And I think the U.S. is planning like a $26 billion investment in green hydrogen.
$26 billion. That's not small potatoes.
That's a serious commitment.
Yeah.
And that's where I think one of the key ideas from superforecasting comes in.
Okay.
Probabilistic thinking. So instead of just saying definitively, like green hydrogen is going to boom or it's going to bust,
right,
we consider, the likelihood of different scenarios.
Exactly.
So given that the costs are decreasing, the investments are increasing, the probability of significant growth in this sector seems pretty high.
It's looking more and more likely.
But of course, it's not a sure thing.
Of course not. No investment ever is.
Exactly. So what are some of the things that could, throw a wrench in the works for green energy?
Well, I think one of the major factors we always have to consider is policy shifts.
Okay.
Imagine a future where we have an administration that's very pro-traditional oil and gas.
Okay.
That kind of policy change could really slow down the momentum of green energy investments.
Absolutely.
And really shift those probabilities that we were just talking about.
Yeah, so it's not, a guaranteed smooth ride to the top for green energy.
Never is.
But, I am curious, could this growth in green tech actually offset some of the economic damage that we're seeing from this trade war?
Potentially.
Because there has been talk about it maybe countering like a significant loss. Like maybe even a $50 billion loss.
Yeah, and this is where Sam Altman's recommendation of superforecasting really comes in.
Okay.
Because Altman, in his work with AI, and especially at OpenAI, he understands the importance of data analysis, the power of predicting future trends. And these are, core skills of a superforecaster.
Absolutely.
His endorsement of this book, even back in 2016.
Yeah.
It highlights the value of this kind of, data-driven thinking when we're looking at these really complex shifts that are happening. I mean, you can even go online these days, check out X, and you'll see people debating whether tech or green stocks are going to bounce back faster.
It's a hot topic.
Oh, absolutely.
And, for our listeners who are interested in how the economy and technology intersect.
Right.
What we're seeing right now with this whole stock market reaction to the trade war and then the rise of green energy, it really illustrates these forces at play.
Yeah.
And superforecasting offers a really valuable way, I think, to think more clearly about navigating this kind of uncertainty.
So to sum up, what have we learned today?
Yeah.
Well, we've explored how applying those principles of super forecasting, the data, staying open to new information, that probabilistic thinking, how that can help us interpret what's happening in the U.S. stock market.
Right.
And, with this global trade war still going on.
Yeah.
And we highlighted the growing potential of green energy investments, particularly green hydrogen, as a sector that might offer some, stability and growth.
In this crazy landscape.
Exactly.
So for all of our listeners out there, I'll leave you with this final thought. Keeping in mind these principles of super forecasting and this, constantly shifting economic environment, what other sectors?
Yeah.
What other unexpected sectors might be out there that are poised for, significant growth in the near future?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's the question. It's all about looking at the data and, thinking probabilistically. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
See you next time.
Bye.